What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Porter Says podcast with your host and only host, Heath. Sorry about the a week away hiatus, I guess. I just wasn't really feeling the filming the episode last week. I was just like, well, I've done 30 and I thought I was starting to feel a little burnt out. I know 30 isn't really a ton, but, since I've been doing this, podcast since, October, and we're in July now, which is wild to think about, of 2025, it's in maybe 2 months' time, it'll be a year since I've been doing this. So I was just like, well, alright, I'm going to take a little break from filming. But I'm back. This episode will be coming out this Friday, hopefully, if not even maybe Saturday. So I hope you guys have missed me, and I hope you like the newest edition, which is just this fold-out table, which I was like, you know what, I need a fold-out table. I need something that is a little bit more professional than it usually would be, and it's just easier for me personally. So I hope you like it. I'm not going to be talking about any big film release because, Megan 2.0 came out, but I haven't been bothered to go and see that since there's not too many showings of it. But the biggest one will be Superman next week. So I'll be seeing that next week and then expect a review of it in the next week. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. So I guess I'm just going to talk about, a bunch of things. Well, not a bunch. I don't really have that much to talk about. But I decided that, with Fantastic Four coming out in a couple of weeks, and, that being a part of the MCU. So sorry, that's the garbage truck coming by. I'm sorry if you can hear that. But so with Fantastic Four being a part of the MCU and it coming out in a few weeks, I kind of wanted to go back and talk about Phase 1 of the MCU. I know I've done an episode about the MCU kind of when I did that bracket ages ago, episode 8 or something. So I was like, people kind of know my thoughts a little bit. But since it's been a while, and I was randomly watching an old episode of the Escape Pod podcast, so I really hope I'm not stealing this idea. I'm sure there's plenty of videos I've done it, but I was just watching it, and I'm like, I want to do this. This seems like fun. Why not talk about the individual phases? So we're going all the way back to Phase 1. That'll be towards the end, most likely. So I guess we'll start off with... I have been watching a bunch of stuff, a bunch of films and shows and stuff like that, and a decent amount of music, but nothing that I really feel like discussing. So, but the biggest thing I want to actually, the one film kind of documentary thing that I do want to mention is that on Disney Plus they released this 2-part episode documentary thing called Call Her Alex, which is a 2-part documentary, and it's about the woman called Alex Cooper, who does the podcast Call Her Daddy. So I watched that. This was a few weeks ago now. So I watched that, and I was very surprised by it because I didn't expect much, really. And I thought, okay, this will just be a little about what it's like to be on the road, because she does a lot of live shows and stuff like that, and that'll be about it. But it went into a lot more about that. And that's what I really like about those little documentaries they released about artists or people who do the podcast and content creators in general as well. Is that no matter how big or famous you do become, is that, life is still going to be terrible. There's things that are going to happen and you can't really control it. It doesn't matter how famous you are, you still have to live in the real world, I guess. And this one really went into how troubling some of the production side of the live shows that Alex Cooper does, and that it's like not always going to be easy. You get really stressed out and you don't feel like doing or filming anything. So I really liked that side of it. So I just wanted to give a little mention to that, because if you do have Disney Plus, I highly recommend checking it out. If you don't, just find it streaming somewhere else. It's a documentary that's really worth watching, especially if you're interested in the podcast side of the world, which I very much am, obviously. I have my own one now, so... And I'm not trying, like I said, I'm not trying to get recognized by any of these big other podcasts that I've mentioned a few times. Like, I just want to give them shout outs and say how great they are, because, a decent amount of, one of the many reasons that I wanted to do my own podcast is because of theirs. They inspired me, essentially. So I'd say give that a watch, and definitely listen to her podcast on Spotify, because it's really interesting. She goes and hers is mainly just about like different life stuff and all that. So that's the biggest film, I guess, if you want to call it, like a little TV documentary. Definitely worth watching. I guess we'll move on to the main segment. Porter's in the background sleeping, of course, so I'll try and talk over him as best as I can. Yeah, alright. Well, let's get on to talking about Phase 1 of the MCU. So, this phase consists of Iron Man, the Incredible Hulk, Thor, Captain America, the First Avenger, and then concluding with the First Avengers. Yeah, so as I said at the beginning, like one of the reasons I kind of wanted to do this is that, again, Fantastic Four is coming out. It's a new MCU movie. We had Thunderbolts a few months ago, and everybody was saying that was kind of bringing the MCU back. So I don't really necessarily agree. I think a few others have said this, but I think Fantastic Four will be the deciding point of that. And with the end credit scene of Thunderbolts, we kind of have a feeling where this is going with the Fantastic Four movie. So I'm just kind of going to briefly discuss the films. I'm not going to go super into detail. And then I'm going to rank them from worst to best at the end. So we start with Iron Man from 2008. Look, it's a fantastic movie. It started the MCU. Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man and Tony Stark is one of the best casting decisions ever. No one else could have played that role like he did at all. If this movie had flopped, I don't think the MCU would have even happened. I really don't. And the thing is, no one really knew much about Iron Man at all. And I think people knew him, but just he wasn't as well known as someone like Spider-Man or Batman or Superman or anything. And the villain, he's not the best villain in the MCU, but I think he was solid enough, and he, had served his purpose as being the villain for this first film in the MCU. It's a great origin story. It's got a lot of fun action sequences. Jon Favreau is great as Happy Hogan. There's so many iconic moments and lines in this film, and it started off the MCU with a bang. Then in the same year, The Incredible Hulk was released with Edward Norton as the big green monster himself. This one, in my own personal opinion, and I think I do know a lot of people really like this one and have come around to it and kind of appreciate it as the black sheep of the MCU. I think it's okay. It's a decent watch. It's got a couple of fun moments. Edward Norton, I'm not the biggest fan of his portrayal, but he was fine as the character. Hulk looks great. It's probably like the best Hulk we've gotten by far. I feel like at a point in the MCU, in my opinion, after Ragnarok, the Hulk really got done dirty. People would even say like after the first Avengers, he got done dirty. But I liked where they were going with him in Ragnarok. But I'm not going to talk about Ragnarok. So, The Incredible Hulk. I do like the finale. Like, it is mostly like a big CGI fest, but what MCU movie isn't? I will say that the CGI on Hulk and Abomination, while not looking the best, really, is better than some of what CGI we're getting in the MCU nowadays, which is really sad. Because this was 2008. And what are we now, 2025, and the MCU CGI still isn't the best at all. It's bad in a lot of movies. Even the great ones, there's a lot of bad special effects in there. So, Abomination as a villain, I think Tim... No, it's not Tim. I can't remember who plays the Abomination, but he did a good job. Like, you know, he was fine. William Hurt, I think, is General Ross. He was good in this. That's pretty much like one of the only things that kind of ties into the Incredible Hulk in the rest of the MCU is that he shows up. Because this movie isn't really talked about much until like even maybe in Captain America 4 is when it kind of... That movie felt more like a sequel to this than it did to previous Captain America films, which is very strange. But yeah, Incredible Hulk, it's okay overall. It's not a movie I go back to a lot at all. I think it's a bit bland compared to other ones, but it's better than a lot of the newer ones. I think it's better than like Love and Thunder and yeah, I think it's better than Love and Thunder, better than Black Widow, Eternals, all that stuff. And then so then we went to 2000 and... Oh no, hold on. Iron Man 2. I forgot about Iron Man 2. My bad. Iron Man 2 was also in Phase 1. My bad. So Iron Man 2 in 2010. Obviously, Rhodey was recast from Terrence Howard to... Oh no, who plays Rhodey in this new one? I can't remember who plays Rhodey. Oh no, hopefully it comes to me, but he was much better in this one as Rhodey. Justin Hammer is a pretty decent villain. He's a much better villain than Whiplash is, I think. Iron Man 2 is nowhere near as good as the first one. I think it's messier than the previous one. It definitely has its really fun moments. Like, it has a lot more than you would think. Like, the suitcase armor is great, but I feel like a lot of the fight scenes don't go on as long as they should, which is a shame. Like, especially the final fight just goes like that, in my opinion. Like, once Rhodey is done chasing Tony around, because he's been kind of like controlled by Justin Hammer's character. Once he gets kind of all good and he's like, alright, I'm going to fight alongside with you, Tony, the fight just kind of like ends. Especially when it comes to Whiplash. Like, he's taken out for a good chunk of the movie. Like, you do see him, but he doesn't do much after the racetrack scene. Although, the most iconic line... One of the most iconic lines in the MCU is, I want my bird. Where is my bird? This is not my bird, you know? You can never, like... Even though Iron Man 2 isn't the greatest movie ever, that line is pretty great. Yeah, so I think Iron Man 2 is it's a solid sequel, but it isn't quite as good as the first one, and it's not as good as some of the movies that come after it. Then we had Thor. So I think Thor and Captain America came out the same year. I don't know which came first, so I'm going to go with Thor on this one. I really enjoy the first Thor movie. Kenneth Branagh directed it. You got Chris Hemsworth. You got... Oh my god, I'm really blanking on these people's names. Oh god. Natalie Portman, Kat Dennings, whoever played Loki. I have to Google. I have to Google this. This is bad. I can't remember these people's names. Wow. I'm so good at what I do. Tom Hiddleston. Here we go. Tom Hiddleston, Idris Elba, Anthony Hopkins, Stellan Skarsgård. You know, pretty decent cast. And like a solid film. although it is kind of annoying that like Thor isn't really Thor for a good chunk of the movie. He's on Earth, which was kind of boring. We don't get enough of Asgard in this, but from what we do see, it does look pretty good. But again, it's another film that's a little bit bland. Like, I don't like the Dutch angles and stuff like that. The villain, like, which is Loki, but then like one of the final fights is just this giant robot. I'm like, we didn't need this. We could have just had the final fight between Loki and Thor, and that would have been enough. So, yeah, I like this movie. I do. I just think for the first Thor movie, it could have been a lot better than it was. And I feel like a lot of it could have been cut out. We didn't need to be him brought down to Earth. I just, like, I get it. Like, we had to do that. But also, did we really? Like, it gave him a bit of character development. But, although, another iconic line is, him in the cafe. Oh, this drink, I like it. I know it's great, right? Another, yeah. So, Thor, it's another good MCU movie, but it's not great. Okay, so Captain America, the First Avenger. Now, this one, for me, is a movie that had gotten so much better over the years as I rewatch it, because it's a really, really good movie. Like, I love the character of Steve Rogers and Captain America. It's always between, like, him and Iron Man. Like, it's always between those two, because those are, like, the two big faces of these films. So I find it really tough to choose, but I just love his character. There are times when he can be a bit much, but other than that, I think he's a really great character, and Chris Evans is fantastic. I love the 1940s setting. I think Red Skull as a villain, Hugo Weaving, does a solid job, and he's one of the better villains in the later MCU films, or not later, but in the early MCU movies. I think he's a pretty good villain. Peggy Carter, of course. I love her. I love Hayley Atwell as her character. She's great. Yeah, I think a lot of the action's pretty fun, and I love how it sets up pretty much that, because this was the one that came before the first Avengers. It sets up once, Steve is brought out of the ice years later, and he goes around, he's like, where am I? It's like, oh, you're in New York City, man. Like, what are you doing? But yeah, no, I really like the first Captain America movie. I think a lot of people do tend to hate on it, but it's like, it's got this really fun charm to it, and the music's great. And it has a lot of, like, really good, memorable lines in it, like very good messages. So, but then it all culminated. The previous movies building up to the first Avengers in 2012. I vividly remember seeing this movie back in 2012 when it came out, and it was just, seeing it in cinemas was from what I remember, was a great theater experience, and I've loved this movie ever since then. It is so good. It brings these characters together, and it gives them more development. There's so many iconic lines and moments. The 360 shot in the Battle of New York, Loki being even more of a badass of a villain. Just like, the first Avengers, man, a lot of people saying it doesn't hold up. It does. I think it's one of the best. It's in my top, I believe it's in my top 10 of the MCU, or even top 5 or 6. I can't remember. I think it might be top 5 in my Letterboxd, because I have a list of the MCU, which, if you want to see that, check out my Letterboxd for sure. Yeah, no, there's a lot of good moments in this stuff, like, yeah, the final battle in New York. The only thing I will say is that it does go on a bit too long towards the end. I think there's a couple of things that could have been cut or, like, shortened a bit, But Hulk in this movie is so good, and Mark Ruffalo, who, replaced Edward Norton and pretty much plays Hulk for the rest of the MCU, he's great. He's so much better than Edward Norton, in my opinion. Hulk still looks really good. The scene where it's like Hulk smash, he's like, yep, I'll do it, and he's taking out all these aliens and stuff like that and taking down the ship. The moment where he punches Thor like that, their little fight scene they have is really great once he's unleashed as the Hulk. Puny God, when he grabs Loki and smashes them all over the place. Man, I love this movie. I think it's utterly just fantastic. Not perfect. I wouldn't say it's a perfect movie. There is no perfect film. Like, it probably, it's about as perfect as you can get. Like, it brings these characters together, like, really, really well. And there was really no other film before that did team-ups of superheroes, but I think Spider-Man 3 did it. Spider-Man 3 did that well when you have Harry Osborn and Peter Parker come together at the end of Spider-Man 3 after everything they went through in that film. So, I'd say the first Avengers wasn't that movie to do it. I think Avengers does a better job of it, and the first Avengers is a better movie. But I mean, yeah, I feel like people tend to, I don't think a lot of people hate on the first Avengers these days, but they tend to kind of like not be high in it as they should be, like as high as they should be. Because it just if it flopped, it would have been the end of it. Like, if this movie wasn't as good as it was, I don't think the MCU would have continued. But you got to thank even the previous films. Like, you don't need to skip all of Phase 1 at all. You don't. Like, you have to watch all of them, I think. So that is the end of my discussion of the MCU Phase 1. Now I'm going to rank these from worst to best. So, coming in last place is The Incredible Hulk. As I said, it's not a bad movie at all, but it's just not as good as the others. And then I would probably go Iron Man 2, and that's a bit of a step up from Hulk. Solid film, but not as good as the first one. Then I'd go Thor. I like the movie, but again, I feel like there's so much more they could have done, and yeah. Then I'd go Captain America, the First Avenger. Really, really solid movie. Great origin story, in my opinion. Then I'd probably go Iron Man. Yeah, I'd go the first Iron Man. It's an awesome movie. It's a great start to the MCU. You wouldn't have it if it wasn't for Iron Man. And then coming at number 1 is the First Avengers. And that's actually going to conclude today's episode of the Porter Says podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Consider liking, share, subscribing, everything, and follow me on my other social media and accounts and stuff like that. Really hope you enjoyed this episode again, and I hope, you didn't miss me too much. And I hope you like this new inclusion. I hope it looks a bit better and a little bit more like I'm professional at this gig. So, I guess I will catch you guys in the next one. Take care, everybody. Have a good rest of your week.